She was already declared dead. So why was her body still being found? Let's find out. Don't forget to subscribe for more chilling tales. Tell us in the comment section where you're listening from. We'd love to know. This is Silence After the Screams. Please like and subscribe so you won't miss what's coming next. The story begins. The first thing the hunters noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind that settles over the forest at dusk, but the uneasy quiet that feels like something is listening back. The dogs had stopped barking. Their tails were rigid, noses buried deep into the leaf-littered ground near the logging road that cut through the Pine Water Preserve in southern Alabama. It was December 4th, 2023. Minutes earlier, the men had fired a clean shot at a buck just before sunset. The animal had bolted into the trees, and the dogs trained, reliable, had taken off after it. But when the hunters followed, expecting blood and antlers, they found something else entirely. A human torso lay half-hidden beneath pine needles and damp soil. The woman's body had been carefully separated. No head, no arms, no legs, just the torso, wrapped loosely in plastic and left several yards off the road as though whoever placed it there wanted it found. But not too quickly. By nightfall, the preserve was crawling with law enforcement. Floodlights pierced the darkness. Yellow tape fluttered in the cold wind. The dogs that had led the hunters there now whined and pulled at their leashes, confused by the sudden chaos. Within days, more remains surfaced. A right leg nearly 3 miles away, discovered after a buzzard circled too low for too long. A left leg pulled from a thicket by a search dog. And finally, 5 days after the first discovery, a shallow grave near the roots of a longleaf pine revealed the woman's head carefully buried. Unlike the rest of her, the brutality was undeniable. The medical examiner would later conclude that the woman had suffered multiple blunt force injuries to the skull, defensive wounds on her arms, and deep trauma to her abdomen. Whatever killed her had done so with rage and time. Who she was, however, remained a mystery. Scattered near the first recovery site were objects that raised more questions than answers. 2 large plastic storage bins, one black, one gray, both wiped meticulously clean. A red-handled utility knife lay nearby, also wiped free of fingerprints. Dozens of disinfectant wipes were strewn across the forest floor like confetti after a terrible celebration. Inside one of the bins, forensic teams detected traces of human blood, but no usable DNA. Whoever did this had planned, and whoever they were, they believed they were smarter than the woods. The remains had not been there long. Insects told their own timeline. Death had occurred just days before discovery, likely in late November. But without fingerprints, without dental records, without a missing person report that matched, the woman had no name. For nearly 6 months, she existed only as Jane Doe of Pine Water Preserve. When genealogical testing finally cracked the case, the truth was almost as shocking as the crime itself. The woman was Elena Harper, 41 years old, a nonprofit program coordinator, a daughter, a sister, a woman known for her kindness, intelligence, and quiet ambition. Elena held a graduate degree in public administration. She had spent years working corporate jobs before leaving for nonprofit work because, as one friend put it, she couldn't stand helping companies make money when people were suffering. She was deeply close to her parents, Richard and Ann Harper, and doted on her 2 younger brothers. She kept lifelong friendships. She remembered birthdays. She sent handwritten notes. And she was married. Her husband, Caleb Harper, was a former military attorney, a decorated officer, who had served overseas and later worked in federal legal offices. On paper, Caleb was impressive, intelligent, disciplined, charismatic. Together, they lived in a modest coastal home near Mobile, Alabama, sharing the space with Elena's parents after a string of relocations. By all appearances, Elena had not vanished. According to her husband, she had died peacefully. When investigators informed the Harper family that Elena's remains had been identified, her parents were devastated, but not shocked. They believed their daughter was already dead. Caleb had told them so. According to him, Elena had suffered a sudden medical emergency in late November. She had been taken to a private medical facility. By the time he arrived, she was gone. A complication, possibly cardiac, possibly related to stress. There had been no viewing, no hospital paperwork, no death certificate. Caleb explained that a tragic administrative error had led to Elena being cremated before an autopsy could be completed. He had paid cash to resolve the situation. Her ashes, he said, were scattered quietly at sea. And Harper remembered the day Caleb told them. He came into the house crying, she later testified. I thought something had happened to him. And then he said, she's not coming home. There had been plans for a memorial. It never happened. Within weeks, Caleb disappeared from their lives entirely. Back in Pine Water Preserve, investigators searched for anything at all that might explain how Elena's body had ended up scattered across miles of forest. There were no homes nearby, no witnesses, no obvious surveillance, except one, a municipal pumping station, located less than a mile from where the torso was found, had an exterior security camera. On November 30th, 2023, just after noon, the camera captured a dark SUV driving past. Minutes later, it passed again in the opposite direction. The vehicle belonged to Caleb Harper. When questioned, Caleb did not deny being in the area. Instead, he told a story that would leave even seasoned detectives struggling to decide whether they were hearing the truth or the opening chapter of a delusion. When detectives asked Caleb Harper why his SUV appeared near Pine Water Preserve on the same day Elena's remains were later scattered there, he didn't hesitate. He leaned forward, lowered his voice, and said, "Because we were being hunted." What followed was not an alibi, but a saga. Caleb claimed that years earlier, long before Elena's death, he and his wife had become targets of a shadowy group determined to destroy them. Their bank accounts had been tampered with, their home vandalized. Anonymous threats appeared without explanation. He said it all escalated until one night, masked men attacked him outside his home. And then, salvation arrived. A man calling himself Victor Hale. Victor, according to Caleb, was a federal agent operating deep undercover. He said Victor showed credentials, said he knew details no outsider should know, said he was there to protect them. From that moment on, Caleb said, their lives were no longer their own. Victor told them when to move, where to live, who to trust, and most importantly, who not to trust. Over the next 3 years, Caleb and Elena moved constantly. Short-term rentals, cash payments, burner phones. They stopped seeing friends, cut contact with family. Elena quit working altogether, too frightened to leave the house alone. Her parents noticed the change. She was always nervous, and Harper later recalled. She jumped at noises. She checked the locks constantly. She said people were watching them. Victor warned them that even their families might be compromised. Caleb believed him. On the morning of November 30th, the day before, Elena was supposedly hospitalized. Caleb said. Victor contacted him with urgent instructions. They needed to relocate again. Caleb was told to pack their belongings into large plastic storage bins and deliver them to a designated drop point. Someone would retrieve them and transport them safely to the next location. Victor gave him GPS coordinates. Caleb said he didn't question it. He never did. He packed the bins himself, loaded them into his SUV. He was instructed to turn off his phone once he reached the area. According to him, the bins contained laptops, personal documents, and clothing. Nothing else. But vehicle data told a different story. GPS tracking placed Caleb's SUV at multiple locations inside Pine Water Preserve, each corresponding almost perfectly with where Elena's remains were later found. He stayed in the area for nearly 2 hours. Receipts showed he stopped for gas, then at a hardware store. There, he purchased a red-handled utility knife. Earlier that month, he had bought a shovel. When confronted with this, Caleb insisted Victor ordered every step. If he told me to jump, Caleb said quietly, I would have jumped. Investigators turned their attention to the short-term rental Elena and Caleb had occupied during her final days. At first glance, the home looked clean. Too clean. Luminol testing told the real story. The floor lit up in patches, areas scrubbed repeatedly. The walls showed faint reactions. But it was the futon in the living room that stopped everyone cold. A large stain was visible even without testing. Blood. When the fabric was removed, it revealed deep saturation inside the mattress. DNA testing confirmed the blood belonged to Elena Harper. The positioning of the stain suggested she had been seated upright. That was where the fatal blows occurred. Caleb said he had no explanation. After Elena's death, Caleb reported a series of catastrophic losses. First, his vehicle was broken into. A backpack containing laptops and phones, devices that could supposedly prove Victor Hale's existence, was stolen. Then came the fire. Caleb claimed his SUV suddenly began smoking while he was driving. When he pulled over and opened the door, the vehicle erupted into flames. He suffered minor burns. Everything inside was destroyed, including, he said, a cashier's check worth nearly $900,000, money intended to purchase a permanent home. Investigators noted the irony. Every piece of evidence that might support Caleb's story vanished. But something else emerged. Just months before Elena's death, Caleb had begun communicating online with a novelist named Renee Lawson. They bonded over dark fiction, psychological thrillers, true crime stories. Caleb told Renee he was a widower. He told her Elena had died years earlier. Within months of Elena's actual death, Caleb changed his name, married Renee, and moved states. The timeline was impossible to ignore. The autopsy delivered the final crack in Caleb's story. Elena Harper was not pregnant, despite telling her family she was 8 months along, despite planning for a baby, despite Caleb insisting she was due in January. Medical certainty left no room for doubt. Investigators believed Caleb knew. They believed the truth surfaced. They believed anger followed. They believed Elena's fear that she might lose him became reality. When questioned directly, Caleb denied everything. I loved her, he said. I would never hurt her. But the evidence no longer needed his confession. It had already told the story. By the time Caleb Harper stood trial, the story he had once told so confidently was collapsing under its own weight. Prosecutors didn't rush. They didn't need to. They let Caleb speak. And speak he did. For hours, he described his military career, his intelligence work, his years of living in terror, under the direction of a man he claimed was named Victor Hale. He admitted he lied to friends, to family, to wives, but insisted every lie was told to stay alive. I believed him, Caleb told the jury. I believed everything he said. The problem was simple. Victor Hale did not exist. No federal records, no employment files, no phone numbers that stayed active, no witnesses who had ever met him. The prosecution called it what it was, a phantom designed to carry blame. Prosecutors walked the jury through Caleb's life like a map of contradictions. They showed how he had testified, under oath in a previous divorce, that he was worth tens of millions of dollars, money that no bank could confirm, money that never surfaced. Money he said was controlled by unseen handlers. They showed how he avoided debts by constantly moving, how he isolated Elena from friends and family, how fear became the air she breathed. Former friends testified that Elena had grown withdrawn, anxious, constantly looking over her shoulder. She thought someone was always watching, one said, but she trusted her husband completely. Then came the evidence no story could erase. The GPS data, the store receipts, the blood-soaked futon. Caleb had been at every disposal site. The purchases matched the tools. The cleaning supplies matched the scene. And then came the motive. A forensic pathologist took the stand and delivered the statement that changed everything. Elena Harper was not pregnant. She had not been pregnant for months, possibly never. The courtroom went silent. Prosecutors argued that Caleb knew that the illusion he wanted most, a child, had collapsed. That Elena, desperate not to lose him, had carried the lie forward. When the truth surfaced, rage followed. The injuries told the story: blunt force trauma to the head, defensive wounds, abdominal injuries that spoke of fury, not accident. This was not fear, the prosecutors said. This was punishment. Caleb's former wives testified next. One described years of manipulation, financial deception, and lies about wealth that never existed. The woman he married after Elena's death spoke last. She told the jury how Caleb claimed to be a widower, how he sent altered documents, how he pushed for marriage quickly, for children immediately. "I didn't know who he really was," she said quietly. None of us did. After closing arguments, the jury deliberated for just over an hour. When they returned, Caleb stood motionless. The verdict was read: guilty of malice murder, guilty of felony murder, guilty of aggravated assault. Caleb Harper was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus additional years for related crimes. As he was led away, he did not look at the gallery. At sentencing, Elena's closest friend spoke. Elena was not a victim in a story he invented, she said. She was a bright, loving, generous woman who trusted the person she loved most. She spoke of Elena's laughter, her compassion, the way she defended others. She spent years living in fear, she said, and the fear was him. The Pinewater Preserve has grown quiet again. The logging roads are empty. The trees stand unchanged. Hunters still walk those paths, unaware of how close they tread to history. But the forest remembers. It always does. And sometimes, when the lies grow heavy enough, the earth gives the truth back.